You walk into a room full of people. Familiar faces, friendly conversations, yet something feels off. A hollow feeling creeps in despite being surrounded by others. Your smile stays fixed while an invisible wall separates you from everyone else. You're physically present but emotionally absent. This paradox of feeling lonely in a crowd isn't just your imagination, it's a common human experience that affects millions. I felt this exact sensation at a party last year. Standing in a corner, drink in hand, watching people laugh and connect while feeling like I was observing them through glass. My body was there, but my mind was elsewhere, disconnected from the warmth and connection everyone else seemed to share so effortlessly. This disconnect has become increasingly common in our hyperconnected world. Studies show that despite having more ways to connect than ever before, loneliness rates have doubled since the 1980s. A recent Cigna study found that 61% of Americans report feeling lonely, a striking figure for a species that evolved specifically for social connection. The brain processes social rejection in the same regions that process physical pain. When you feel isolated in a crowd, your brain experiences it as a genuine threat to survival. Our ancestors relied on tribal connections for protection and resources. Being ostracized meant death. This explains why that sense of disconnection feels so deeply unsettling even when you're physically safe. What creates this paradox of isolation amid company? The answer lies beyond simple presence and enters the realm of authentic connection. The first factor is the depth of your interactions. Superficial conversations about weather and work create proximity without intimacy. When interactions remain on the surface level, you can spend hours with people and still feel unknown. As philosopher Martin Buber described, we often engage in an I and it relationships, treating others as objects or roles, rather than an I and thou relationship to see the full humanity in each person. Social media has amplified this problem. We scroll through carefully curated highlights of hundreds of connections rather than engaging deeply with a few. The average person spends over 2 hours daily on social platforms yet reports feeling less connected than previous generations. The quantity of interactions has increased while the quality has diminished. The second factor is your authentic presence. When you monitor every word and gesture to project an acceptable image, you create distance. Psychologist Carl Rogers termed this the gap between your real self and your ideal self. The wider this gap, the more isolated you feel, even when physically with others. You worry they're connecting with your performance rather than your true self. I remember attending work functions where I calculated every comment, maintaining my professional persona while feeling completely alone. The exhaustion of this performance only deepened my sense of isolation. No one was connecting with the real me because I wasn't showing them that person. The third factor is meaningful context. Groups formed around shared interests or circumstances don't automatically create connection. The frameworks of these gatherings, whether dinner parties or work meetings, often discourage vulnerability and authentic sharing. The structure itself can prevent the very connections you seek. Psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi noted that genuine connection happens when people enter a flow state together, becoming fully absorbed in meaningful shared experience. Without this shared purpose or depth, gathering spaces become containers for collective loneliness rather than connection. The most insidious factor might be comparison. When you see others laughing and connecting, you assume they've mastered something you lack. This creates a cycle where your perceived inadequacy increases your self-consciousness, which further prevents authentic connection. The irony is that many people in the same room feel identical isolation while believing they're the only ones struggling. This explains why people with active social lives still report profound loneliness. The presence of others without true connection only highlights what's missing. It's like being hungry in a room full of plastic food. The approximation of nourishment makes the hunger more apparent. Connection requires psychological safety. To truly meet another person, you need space where both can lower defenses. Most social environments prioritize impression management over vulnerability. The unspoken rules of many gatherings actively discourage the openness required for genuine contact. Healing this disconnection starts with understanding that loneliness isn't a personal failing but a signal about the quality of your connections. The solution isn't necessarily more social interaction, but different kinds of engagement. First, recognize that depth matters more than breadth. Research from the University of Kansas found that it takes about 50 hours of interaction to move from acquaintance to casual friend, 90 hours to become a friend, and 200+ hours to develop a close friendship. This explains why childhood and college friendships often feel more substantial. They formed during periods when you spent concentrated time together. Instead of expanding your network, invest deeply in a few relationships. Quality trumps quantity in meaningful connection. A study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that having just one or two close confidants better predicted happiness than having many casual connections. Second, practice authentic self-disclosure. Psychologist Arthur Aaron developed a process where strangers become close through progressively deeper questions. The key finding was that mutual vulnerability fosters closeness. When you share something real about yourself, it creates space for others to do the same. This doesn't mean overwhelming new acquaintances with your life story. Rather, it means being willing to move past script and share genuine thoughts and experiences when appropriate. The risk of rejection exists, but so does the possibility of real connection. Third, seek environments designed for authentic interaction. Some contexts naturally encourage deeper connection, shared challenges, creative collaboration, or settings explicitly designed for meaningful conversation. Look for situations that break the usual social scripts and create space for genuine exchange. I found this in a writing group where the focus on creative work naturally led to more authentic interactions. The shared purpose created a foundation for connection that casual social events lacked. Find your version of this, spaces where the activity itself encourages showing up as your whole self. Fourth, develop comfort with solitude. The panic that drives you to seek any company, regardless of quality, often stems from discomfort with being alone. When you can be at peace with yourself, you make better choices about the connections you pursue. As philosopher Paul Tillich noted, language has created the word loneliness to express the pain of being alone. And it has created the word solitude to express the glory of being alone. Learning to value your own company reduces desperation in social situations. This self-sufficiency paradoxically makes meaningful connection more likely, as you're connecting from wholeness rather than need. Finally, recognize that connection isn't always immediately evident. Sometimes the people who seem most integrated into the social fabric feel equally disconnected. The person confidently working the room might be as lonely as you are in the corner. Assuming others have solved the puzzle of belonging prevents you from seeing potential allies in your experience. Brené Brown's research on vulnerability shows that people universally fear rejection yet universally desire connection. This shared human experience creates a bind where everyone wants the same thing but fears taking the steps to achieve it. Someone needs to go first. The path from isolation to connection isn't about becoming more likable or socially skilled. It's about creating spaces where real meeting can occur. Sometimes this means being the person who asks a more meaningful question or shares a more authentic response. Other times it means finding environments already structured for deeper exchange. Remember that loneliness amid people isn't a personal failing but a mismatch between your need for connection and the quality of interaction available. By seeking depth over breadth, practicing appropriate authenticity, finding the right contexts, developing comfort with solitude, and recognizing the universality of this struggle, you can begin bridging the gap between presence and connection. The next time you feel that familiar isolation in a crowded room, know that you're experiencing something deeply human. The very awareness of disconnection reflects your capacity for meaningful connection. That emptiness is not a void but a space waiting to be filled with something real.